This is Smoke Signals from the Scene Projects. Conversations with people inside of the South Dakota marijuana program. Business owners, patients, and experts all gather here. Remember to get out and vote yes on IM29 on November 5th, 2024. Smoke Signals is brought to you by Elevate Cannabis Dispensary in Yankton, South Dakota. Dakota Green and the Terp Ranch. Trails Head Cannabis in Deadwood, South Dakota. And Roy's Premium Cannabis. Welcome into a very exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Starts, and with me today is Olivia from Elevate Cannabis Dispensary. Welcome to the show, Olivia.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on. I was actually in the shop earlier today, and we got a chance to chit-chat, but I want to give our listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit. So a little bit of a backstory on you, and then a little bit of backstory on the store as well, if you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have lived in Yankton almost probably 25 years. The last couple I've been in Vermilion, so not too far. But I've just been always around that area, so very, local girl. I know kind of the ins and outs of places. I have my own little family, 2 beautiful children, a husband. Life is great that way. A little bit about Elevate. We did open September of 2022. It was originally founded by Jeff Dayhoff, Mick Sarda, and my mother, Tara Leonard, who was running it at the time. And about last November, she was able to go to a different job in healthcare, so she asked me if I would kind of take over for her, and of course I did, because who wouldn't want to manage a dispensary? That's probably like the ultimate dream job for anybody. And it just went from there. We did start out, very high price just because we are a third party dispensary. We don't grow any of our own stuff. But we have been able to get our prices down a lot since we have opened to make it more accessible for people on a pinch.
Well, and I'm gonna stop you there because
sorry.
that's a great point. Well, and no, I wanted to get that because I think that's something that kind of gets overlooked, and obviously we're going to talk about IM29 and the importance of recreational use, and we're going to have that discussion. But I wanted to come in and describe how hard it is. I mean, you have all of these regulations and all of these fees that you're paying, and the taxes on top of these things, and all of the cost of operating any business, and then on top of that, your customers have to go and jump through all of these hoops and everything just to be your customer. And on top of that, you have to buy a product and then sell it at a margin in these things, and you're selling a product that at least my entire life has always been pretty readily available on the street, right?
It has been, yes.
So you're competing with a black market. Like, it was so many things stacked against the dispensaries, and I guess I always like to come at it from this angle of treating you as business owners, the business owners and legitimate businesses that on that same level should be treated as, with different regulations. Of course, it's different than alcohol is, but I don't see how it can be treated anyway in a regulated fashion. It just doesn't make sense to me why there's still so much pushback.
And I don't know why there is so much either. THC has been now scheduled down to as Schedule 3, if I'm not mistaken, along with Tylenol and ibuprofen. So the fact that we haven't made it recreational yet is baffling to me. It is absolutely baffling. Because,
I'm outside of it. So they descheduled it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 now. I guess I missed this in the tumultuous year that's been, this a year. It feels like a decade, right, that we've lived in the last several years. And missing. Okay, so it's not even a Schedule 1. There's really no excuse. And I think you're not seeing that represented. And that's why in a conversation, especially here in South Dakota, Dakota. You know, our local media, being a member of the local media, right? It was easy to see how small it is, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So trying to get this message out here that, you know, it's hard. It's even harder for these third party, you know, dispensaries like Elevate is. You know, you're not growing your own supply akin to some of these other ones that are around. You're working on very slim margins to try and run a business in the first place.
Absolutely, yes. It's extremely difficult. You know, we do what we can to make sure that we ourselves can profit, but also our customers can profit as well, because like you said, we have to pay the provider for, you know, to see us for a new med card. We have to pay the state each time for a new med card. On top of that, we have the sales tax and everything. And it's like, if it was rec, it would be able to help so much more people, and, you know, people who actually need it that can't afford it, that can't afford to go out and get a card, you know, and spend hundreds of dollars to get it.
And it would also create it would drive prices down because you would have more of a demand there for the supply. Like, you know what I mean? It would equalize out, right? It would all equalize out, and it would be fair. I'm actually, and it might, you know, I'm someone who voted. I voted early. I voted yes on IM 29. I hope everyone listening does as well. But and the reasons that I want to, and maybe I'm few and big supporters that do, but I was actually glad that we kind of had the medical program for the first 2 years. Now, I wasn't happy with how in the way that we kind of arrived at that, where we should have had recreational a few years ago. I don't want to get too hung up on it, but I'm kind of happy that the medical program had a few years to kind of find its feet. You kind of know who the players are, right? Everything is shaken out. You know who the people in there on the show. And I think the people that are here already and have gone through it, I don't know why, you know, you don't start from there. I mean, they keep making it sound like it's just going to be the Wild West and anybody's going to be able to open up a dispensary on the corner. And it's just so crazy to hear him talk like that. It's like, there's no way that it's just not, it's not going to happen. People who did that would lose a lot of money, right? To think really that you're going to come in and just open up and you're going to make all this money. Like, there's a history of people trying that and riding the green wave in California and in Colorado. And I just, there's so many fallacies when I hear other people talk about it that are not patients. They are not in the rooms with people like you, Olivia, and having these conversations and approaching it from just a completely different light. So
absolutely, yeah. And you know, I agree. I hate the way that it was brought on as medical. I feel like if we would have just had it medicinal to begin with, it would have been a lot, you know, easier for everybody. But along with that, yes, I am glad that we did the medical at first, just so that way we could all learn basically the rules and regulations of what we can and cannot do. You know, and I get with rec, it'll be a little bit different for, you know, but at least we have those rules and regulations now. You know, we know what we can and cannot do in this field.
Well, and I guess the way that I see it, and I hope that this message gets out there, is that your medical program that you've spent these last several years, you know, forming and going over and making adjustments to and saying, hey, this worked really well. We should do, you know, repeat that. This didn't work so great. Don't do that. And then all of these businesses doing the same thing. I feel like it's really primed to everybody get out there and vote, and we're ready for it, right? It doesn't feel like anybody's there, that there's going to be any kind of corners that are cut. The players that are already here, the medical program has already given you the framework for the regulation.
Absolutely.
I think we have some of the highest testing, at least from the growers. My friend Mango with the Terp Ranch, Dakota Green, is on the show. I know the rigorous testing that our product goes through. As a medical patient myself, I love knowing where my product comes from. As someone who bought product on the black market in the past, right? Not knowing what it is. And now living in the era of fentanyl and all of these things, like, I think we're all more inclined to want to buy something that we can trust and from people that we can trust. And the medical program has provided a framework for that and has provided us several, honest establishments where we can all go right now. I feel the time is just right to open up that market to everyone, adult use, and to let this thing really just to go from where the medical is. Everybody who's got a medical sales thing now grandfathers in, right? And we kind of go from there. Whatever it is, I'm sure they're going to hit you guys for a massive extra fee, and there's going to be more taxes, and there's all the bureaucracy that goes with it. But I think it's time, right?
It very much is. I feel like it will benefit way more people than what they are thinking. We're going to get people off buying it off the streets it very well could be laced with something, then there's no guessing. Exactly, like you said, where it comes from, what they're doing to it. And you're getting it from somebody who has been trained to handle it, to make sure that it's good stuff for you. And, studies have shown peanuts have killed more people than marijuana.
Right.
So why haven't we banned peanuts?
Well, and exactly. And I think, what you brought up about the descheduling of it at the federal level is that we have finally have, the recognition by, if they're saying it's akin to Tylenol and Tylenol's available over the counter, right? I'm not saying it has to be in Walmart, right? It doesn't, we don't have to have gummies on every shelf where kids can get them, but there's a responsible we have the frameworks for them. It seems so simple, right? I mean, I go to Colorado quite often, and when I'm there, I always, hit the dispensaries there and to see their operation, and it's so simple, right? It's simple, it's effective, it's safe for everyone involved. We just need to get this stuff open to, banking, let these businesses to have legitimate banking like a business, and to just see the whole thing turn over and to have some common sense with the whole thing. I mean, Olivia, I didn't tell you this earlier, but I did prison time for marijuana, right? I'm coming from someone who lost years of their life with their children for a plant, right? And I now have a license to grow more than what I got caught with originally, and I got caught with a bit. So.
Right. And, just thinking about it, if we were to have it recreational, just think of how many people wouldn't be in prison, in jail. We can find the real people who are real troublemakers that are actually doing bad in this world. Well, people who are smoking weed are not bad people. We just want to be heard like everybody else.
Right. Well, and here's a funny side. I know how full the prisons are and what a mess they have in there and how the overcrowding is because of my family and my wife, we talk about it, was a former correctional officer, family of hers. Her mom's retired from the correctional, right? From the prison that, here that I was in, right? And there was a central hub, Springfield, you grew up in the Yankton area, the Mike Durfee State Prison, right? That's a central. I'm watching thousands of men that are going through this system, and to see not even to me, any percentage of those people coming through with the low level pot offenses, and mine was for possession of mine was actually of a controlled substance, is what I got charged with. So on paper, I didn't get for weed; it was for hash. But that's the same thing, man. I got felony. Anybody's walking around with a vaporizer in their pocket can get a felony. I've gotten the ingestion charges. I've just so much of my life has changed, from then to now, right? And my life could have been different if this plant wasn't demonized and the illegalities of it for a reason.
Exactly. So. Just especially the people who let's say it's their first time offense, they get caught with a little bit. Well, they're going to such extremes as to keep them in prison for years on end. Why are we doing that? It's been scheduled now down. It's descheduled now to a Schedule 3. And so I feel like if you're going to put people behind bars for this reason, then anybody who buys Tylenol, ibuprofen, why aren't we doing the same?
And that's crazy. And that's you would never say that to someone, right? Like grandma going to get cough medicine, you're like, I'll put the cuffs on, lady. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so if we're willing to acknowledge that, and I think we're all willing to acknowledge that there should be regulation. There should be, it shouldn't be the Wild West. It was never going to be. I don't know why the propaganda that you see is just it's gross. And I hate this time of year. I'm so tired of it. And I mean, on so many fronts.
It's just to make it look bad so people will give into those connotations again. It's dating back to hundreds of years ago. This was medicine for people hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So where did we stop?
And for thousands of years, right?
Thousands of years, yes. So why did we stop? It is a natural plant. There's no harm to you,
No.
And a lot of other people, like I said, this is their way of medicine. Like for me, I can't take pills. My stomach will not allow it. So what am I supposed to do? And that, I'm sure it's a lot for a lot of people like that, who can't take meds or who want to have this option but can't because they have to pay an arm and a leg to get it.
Right. And I guess I just go beyond that. And it's like, if you just want to have some gummies and hang out, you should be allowed to do that. You shouldn't need to go through the licensing and the doctors and the whole, you shouldn't have to go and spend all that money just because you want to eat a couple of gummies on the weekend once or twice a year. And I guess that's also that thing too, is that there's plenty of people that can be responsible with this stuff. The studies show it's non-habit. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a craziness that has to end. It's time.
It very much is. I think South Dakota would grow as a state a lot if it became a recreational place.
Well, and did you know that we are the number one producer of industrial hemp, right? So it's like we already have this this love of the cannabis plant, right? We're leaders, right, in the hemp industry now. So we kind of want to maintain that, and to kind of turn the tide of South Dakota would be really cool, to kind of be seen as a conservative, but also kind of a conservative but cool place to be, right? I mean, we got the rally, we got the rodeos. It's kind of always been that place, and this is to me, this has always been like the one stigma that why I didn't love my home state, right? Where it was like, it'd be a lot cooler if I didn't go to jail for smoking a joint, right?
Right.
And
absolutely.
then coming back and doing whatever I did, like I wasn't doing good things, to end up in prison, right? And I don't want to take any of that back, but I don't think anybody else should have to do that because of
absolutely not,
plant,
especially
right?
especially for my canna mamas out there who and for dads too, for anybody, we get such crap on us for smoking to help us maintain through the day, but yet, and I'm nothing against alcohol, but when we can do that on the same level as alcohol, and that's okay, but alcohol threatens our life way more than weed ever has.
Right.
So
and I think the culture has changed. I mean, we're going to have to see how it plays out. Obviously, we're encouraging everyone listening to the show to go and vote yes on IM29 and get out and drag your friends out to vote. And
please vote.
Yeah, well, it's just it's important. And like I said, I think it's time. And with a presidential election, I know it's bringing out a lot of people. And the older generation now, I mean, the older generation now that's voting, they all grew up in the 60s, right? So it's a different generation even than it was 4 years ago or even 2 years ago. So you're kind of dealing with that aging out too. So we'll see. I hope it gets an overwhelming support and we can move on. And IM29, I mean, the vote is just the start. The vote provides us the chance to have a conversation in the legislature about what is the framework going to be, and hopefully things move and they don't drag their feet and we don't have any, shenanigans
Right.
in the legislature. And that's what I mean about the medical being kind of rolled out first, is that, look, we all, it's here. It's not going anywhere. You've all had time to kind of get it under your feet and get it in your heads that, like, this is here. So now let's just build a really good program. Let's just come at it from the, let's build a really good, let's not try to gouge people and to make it something. Let's make sure the money, because there's going to be I don't know how they're not factoring in rally numbers on their things, right? I mean, like, it's, if it goes legal, the sales tax dollars during rally alone across the state, I would have to think generated would have to be, I mean, some of this stuff is taxed at nearly like 40%. Is it not? Or what is so you're getting a pretty hefty tax, and then there's sales tax on top of that, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I don't believe ours is that much, but yes, it is a very hefty, and that's how we have to do it. That's otherwise we can get shut down. We have to follow by all of these rules and regulations. And I get if it becomes rec, we are still going to have to follow those rules, but it'll give us a chance to not have so much added on top. So even if we do have a larger sales tax,
well, you'll have a bigger customer base. That's what it really comes down to with recreational, is that it will open it up. Your customer base will go from this pool of, what is there, maybe 20,000 cards in the whole state, if that. I don't know how many there are right now. But it takes that to literally every person that not only lives in or everyone over 21, obviously, that lives in South Dakota, but also to every person that visits South Dakota, right? And the way it would drive tourism, I mean, I think this place would thrive with some can of tourism stuff, and I think it would be just it would just make South Dakota that much cooler to come and visit, to not have to worry about it. You know what I mean? People are coming from these other states and are carrying this stuff with them anyway, and then they're catching charges while they're here. That doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, nobody, I don't want South Dakota to have the, come on vacation, leave on probation adage anymore. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not. We don't want that at all.
And I don't see how the tourism industry, right? Like, they think differently than us, Olivia, but that's why we vote. That's why we all have a voice. I think culture has changed. We all grew up with Dave Chappelle. We grew up it's definitely, I'm 38. You're much younger than I am. You're closer to my wife's age, but we've all grown up with pop culture just being so much different. And California's, your whole adult life, California has had legal weed, right? Like, I can remember a time where weed across the board was illegal. So it's crazy how much it's changed. I think South Dakota got it before I thought it really would, and the fact that we're even having a conversation about recreational marijuana being not only on the ballot but having a really good chance of passing here in November of 2024. That's actually really cool, right? Like, we've come a long ways to be here, and let's get out there and vote and make sure that we push this thing across the finish line.
Yes, absolutely. Please go out and vote, even if it isn't for the IM29, even if it's for anything else. Just go out and vote, no matter what it's for.
Well,
That's all we need.
Yeah, it's our first civic duty, right?
Yes.
And I got out and voted for the first time today. Obviously, being a felon, I had to kind of wait for some things to be reinstated, and I was very happy to get out and exercise my right in this time, and to take part in the great American experiment, as our country is and has always been. A ever evolving thing, right? That's why we're able to make these amendments and to have these initiated measures and to have this. It's a beautiful experiment in government and self-government. And it's really cool to have finally been a participant in it. It's funny how much more attention you pay to the world around you because of that.
Very much so.
Olivia, why don't you shout out where you guys are at so everybody can find you, if you got a website or anything, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, so you can Google us. Just type in Elevate Dispensary. It should be the first one to pop up. We're open every day during the week. We're on 220 Capitol Street in Yankton. And I think I have the best staff around, super friendly, and we will treat you like one of our own.
Well, yeah, and I'll shout out Misty. She was in the shop yesterday and
Yes.
made sure that you
Yes.
got all my info. And so appreciate you, Misty. Thanks for making sure the connections got made so we could have this conversation today. Olivia, thank you for joining the show, and for everyone else,
Remember
make
to follow
yourself
us
part
on
of
all your
the
social
scene.
media
Thank you
channels.
so much. I appreciate
And
your
check out
time.
thesceneprojects.com and make yourself part of the scene.